By the gods, they're doing it again! Commander Zarthak slammed his fist against the observation panel, causing his lieutenant to jump. Look at this madness, Venra. The human is literally putting that shattered leg back together with sticks and cloth. Through the magnification lens, the scene playing out was nothing short of heretical. Lieutenant Blake Rodriguez, their recently identified combat medic, knelt beside a fallen soldier, whistling an annoyingly cheerful tune while working on what was clearly a mangled leg. The bone had punctured through the skin, blood staining the battlefield dirt, yet this Rodriguez character handled it like he was wrapping a festival gift. "Stop recording," Zarthak barked at his surveillance team. "No, wait, triple record this. The High Command needs to see this insanity." Venra nervously clicked his secondary mandibles, a habit that usually drove Zarthak crazy, but right now he barely noticed. They watched as Rodriguez jabbed something into the injured human's arm, and the impossible happened. The wounded soldier stopped screaming. Instead, he started laughing. "Did you see that?" Zarthak's voice rose to an undignified squeak. "They have some sort of neural override system. They can shut off pain receptors at will." The human medic looked up at his patient, grinning as he worked. "Good news, Private Collins. It's a clean break. 6 weeks and you'll be running laps around the base again, probably with an even stronger leg than before." Zarthak's translator crackled with the intercepted conversation, and he felt his stomach acids curdle. "Stronger, stronger. Venra, are you hearing this? They don't just repair damage, they improve from it." Below, Rodriguez wrapped the leg in something rigid and white, his hands moving with the casual confidence of someone who had done this thousands of times. The injured soldier, Collins, was now telling some sort of story, gesturing wildly despite his grievous wound. "Sir," Venra's voice trembled slightly. "Should we maybe reconsider our invasion strategy?" Zarthak didn't answer immediately. He was too busy watching Rodriguez help Collins onto a transport vehicle, shocked by how the human's face showed no sign of despair at his broken body. In fact, Collins was still talking, something about physical therapy and rehabilitation, words that made Zarthak's scales crawl with unease. "Get me everything we have on human biology," he finally ordered, "and I mean everything. If these creatures can repair catastrophic damage and emerge stronger—" He paused, 4 eyes blinking in sequence as Rodriguez rushed off to another fallen soldier, that same determined spring in his step. "Well, let's just say the High Command is going to have some serious questions about our military intelligence division." As dusk approached, Zarthak couldn't tear his gaze away from the battlefield clinic below. Each passing moment revealed new horrors of human resilience, and a growing suspicion that perhaps, just perhaps, they had picked a fight with something far more terrifying than they'd realized. "Bring in the specimen." Dr. Kexley's voice echoed through the sterile examination chamber, her excitement barely contained. 3 guards dragged in the captured human soldier, Morgan Reeves, who was putting up an impressively creative stream of curses despite his broken leg. "You know," Reeves grunted as they strapped him to the examination table, "on Earth, we usually buy dinner before getting this intimate." Dr. Kexley ignored the incomprehensible human humor, her attention fixed on the white casing around his leg. "Remove this primitive binding device," she ordered her assistants. They carefully cut away the cast, revealing the broken leg beneath. "Fascinating," she breathed, all 6 of her sensory appendages twitching with scientific fervor. "The damage is extensive, yet the subject maintains consciousness and even attempts to engage in social bonding behaviors." Commander Zarthak burst into the lab, nearly tripping over his ceremonial cape in his haste. "Tell me you found something, Doctor. The High Command is breathing down my neck about these reports of self-repairing humans." "Sir, you arrived at the perfect moment," Kexley gestured excitedly at her scanning equipment. "Watch this display as I take readings of the break site." The scanner hummed to life, projecting a 3-dimensional image of Reeves's broken bone. Kexley zoomed in on the fracture point, where new calcium deposits were already forming. "Oh no," Zarthak whispered, all four eyes widening in horror. "Is that what I think it is?" "If you think it's evidence of an autonomous, self-replicating skeletal defense system, then yes." Kexley's voice rose with barely suppressed panic. "Look at these readings. The human's body is actively generating new structural material." Reeves, who had been watching this exchange with growing amusement, couldn't help himself. "You mean the bone's just healing?" "Yeah, that's pretty normal for us. Should be good as new in about 6 weeks. The laboratory erupted into chaos. 3 medical assistants fled the room immediately, one screaming something about weaponized regeneration. Dr. Kexley dropped her scanner, backing away from the examination table like Reeves had just transformed into a quantum bomb. "Did you hear that, Commander?" she whispered, trembling. 6 weeks. They can rebuild their entire structural system in 6 weeks, and he says it's normal. "Wait until I tell you about my cousin Tommy," Reeves added helpfully. "Broke both legs skiing, came back to win a marathon the next year. Doctors said the healed bones were stronger than before." Commander Zarthak grabbed Dr. Kexley's report tablet, his claws shaking as he read the analysis. "This explains everything. The casual attitude toward battlefield injuries, their willingness to engage in high-risk combat maneuvers, their seeming indifference to structural damage." "Sir," one of the remaining assistants interrupted, "the cellular activity around the break site, it's accelerating, almost as if our scanning is triggering some kind of enhanced repair response." Kexley finished, her professional demeanor completely abandoned. "They don't just heal, they adapt and improve their healing process." Reeves watched with growing bewilderment as the alien medical team worked themselves into a complete frenzy over what he considered a pretty straightforward broken tibia. He was about to explain about calcium supplements and physical therapy when Dr. Kexley's next words stopped him cold. "Commander, we have to report this to High Command immediately. If the humans can repair and strengthen their skeletal structure at will, if every injury potentially makes them more resilient, then this isn't just a military campaign anymore. This is a potential extinction-level threat to our entire species." As the aliens rushed from the laboratory, leaving him strapped to the examination table, Reeves couldn't help calling after them, "Hey, any chance I could get some aspirin before you declare war on human biology?" The only response was the sound of running feet and Kexley's distant voice shouting about implementing maximum containment protocols. "Well," Reeves sighed to the empty laboratory, "at least this'll make one hell of a story for the grandkids, if these guys don't dissect me first." The emergency briefing room of the galactic battlecruiser Star Crusher had never been so crowded. Officers packed the seats, their appendages twitching nervously as Dr. Kexley's holographic presentation filled the air with terrifying images of human bone structure. "As you can see," she pointed to a particularly dramatic scan of Reeves's healing leg, "the human response to structural damage isn't just repair, it's enhancement." Commander Zarthak stood at the back, watching his military command dissolve into barely controlled panic. The intelligence analyst, Major Pexitor, was practically hyperventilating through his respiratory tubes. "According to our updated threat assessment," Pexitor squeaked, bringing up his own data streams, "we've discovered hundreds of documented cases of humans intentionally breaking their support structures for improved performance." "Impossible!" someone shouted. "Oh," Pexitor's voice rose an octave, "then explain this intercepted human entertainment feed about something called bodybuilding, where they deliberately tear muscle fibers to make them stronger. They're weaponizing their own cellular repair systems." The room erupted in horrified clicks and whistles. A junior officer fainted. "There's more," Dr. Kexley continued, her professional composure cracking. "We've uncovered human medical documents describing something called Wolf's Law. Their bones actually become denser and stronger in response to stress and impact." Commander Zarthak watched a wave of terror sweep through his officers. 3 of them immediately requested transfers to the diplomatic corps. "But surely they have limits," General Yixtal asked desperately from the front row. "Every species has breaking points." "That's just it, sir." Pexitor pulled up more data. "Look at these human military training protocols. They call it, 'What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.' It's literally their biological doctrine. The room fell silent as security footage from the medical bay played, showing Morgan Reeves doing what he'd called stretching exercises while his leg was still in a cast. Several officers covered their eyes. "By the 7 moons," General Yixtal whispered, "they start the enhancement process before the initial repair is even complete." "Wait until you see this," Dr. Kexley brought up another scan. "The calcium deposits around the break aren't just repairing the damage, they're creating reinforced points. In approximately 6 weeks, this section of bone will be stronger than the original structure." 6 weeks, someone whimpered. "And that's not even addressing their psychological resilience," Major Pexator added, looking like he might need a sedative. When we questioned the captured specimen about the pain, he laughed and said, and I quote, "You should have seen me after rugby season." The briefing room descended into chaos. Officers were shouting over each other, security protocols were being frantically updated, and someone in the back started quietly praying to the ancestral gods. "There's a human saying," Pexator continued, his voice shaking, "about getting back on the horse that threw you. They literally advocate immediately repeating activities that cause them severe physical trauma. The implications for prolonged conflict are concerning," Dr. Kexley understated massively. "Our standard attrition warfare calculations are useless. We can't permanently disable their combat units. We might actually be making them stronger." Commander Zarthak watched as his mighty invasion force, the pride of the Galactic Alliance, collectively lost their minds. A weapons officer was curled up under his desk, rocking back and forth and muttering about human bone density. "There are even reports," Pexator's voice dropped to a terrified whisper, "of humans replacing entire joints with artificial components, then returning to full combat capability. They're not just healing anymore, they're upgrading." The lights flickered as another scan appeared, this one showing the metallic implants in an elderly human's hip. 3 more officers fainted. Someone screamed. "And this?" Dr. Kexley pointed to a historical medical document. "Humans have been deliberately breaking and resetting bones to make them heal stronger for centuries. They call it medical treatment, but we all know what this really is. It's biological weapons research." General Yixtal stood up, his ceremonial armor clattering as he shook. "Are you telling me that every time we've injured their warriors in battle, we've potentially been making them more resilient?" "Worse." Pexator pulled up one final document. "They've developed specialized facilities, they call them gyms and CrossFit boxes, where they deliberately subject themselves to mechanical stress to trigger these enhancement responses. Their entire civilization is built around weaponizing their own repair mechanisms." The briefing room fell silent except for the sound of nervous clicking and the occasional whimper. Commander Zarthak looked around at his once proud military command, now reduced to trembling wrecks by the revelation of humanity's regenerative capabilities. "One last thing," Dr. Kexley said quietly, pulling up the medical bay footage again. "When we asked the human specimen how many times bones could be broken and re-healed, he just smiled and said, 'Want to find out.'" The evacuation alarms began blaring before she even finished speaking. No one awaited dismissal. The briefing room emptied in record time, leaving behind only scattered data tablets and the lingering scent of terror. In the medical bay, blissfully unaware of the hysteria he'd caused, Morgan Reeves continued his physical therapy exercises, wondering why every alien who walked past his window looked like they'd just seen a ghost. The High Command War Chamber looked more like a panic room. Security feeds showed the human medical bay on every screen, all focused on Morgan Reeves, who was now peacefully napping with his leg propped up on pillows. 3 days! Supreme General Kazathor slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor. 3 days since this specimen was captured, and our entire military strategy lies in ruins. Commander Zarthak watched his superior pace the chamber, all 4 eyes twitching sporadically. The rest of the War Council sat in stunned silence, except for Admiral Yi Ixnor, who hadn't stopped stress-molting since the morning briefing. "The latest intelligence is disturbing," General Kazathor continued, his voice cracking. Not only do they heal, they document the process. Look at this. The main screen filled with images of human medical records. They call these X-rays. They actually track the enhancement process. Before and after images, like some sort of biological upgrade catalogue. Supreme General, Admiral Yixnor brushed molted scales from his uniform, perhaps we should consider diplomatic. Diplomacy? Kazthor's shriek made everyone jump. With beings who respond to structural damage by becoming stronger. Did you see the latest report about something they call physical rehabilitation? The room collectively shuddered. Dr. Kexley's report on human rehabilitation protocols had caused 3 intelligence analysts to request immediate retirement. They have specialized warriors, physical therapists they call them, whose sole purpose is to guide the enhancement process. Kazthor pulled up more footage. Look at this torture chamber they call a gym. The screens showed humans lifting weights, doing push-ups and performing various exercises. Several council members had to look away. By the sacred moons, someone whispered, they do this voluntarily. It gets worse. Commander Zarthak stepped forward, dreading what he had to report. We've intercepted communications about something called a marathon. Apparently humans run until their leg muscles literally break down, for fun. The War Council erupted in panic. Admiral Yixnor's molting intensified. Silence! Kazthor roared, though his own mandibles were quivering. We must think strategically. Dr. Kexley, what are your latest findings? The doctor emerged from behind her data screens, looking like she hadn't slept in days. The human specimen has started what he calls stretching exercises. Despite our best efforts to understand this ritual, it appears to be some sort of flexibility-based enhancement protocol. And the bone repair? Kazthor demanded. Accelerating. She pulled up new scans. The calcium deposits are exactly where he said they would be. In another 5 weeks, that leg will be fully functional, possibly stronger than before. Just as he predicted. The silence that followed was deafening. Supreme General, the logistics officer spoke up timidly. Our combat simulations have been rendered useless. How do you calculate casualty rates against an army that treats damage as an upgrade opportunity? Kazthor slumped in his command chair, suddenly looking very old. Show them the sports footage. The screens filled with images of human athletic events, rugby matches, boxing bouts, martial arts competitions. The council watched in horror as humans repeatedly subjected themselves to impacts that would have sent any sensible species into permanent retirement. They do this for entertainment, Admiral Yixnor whispered, now standing in a pile of his own molted scales. Training, Kazthor corrected grimly. They're systematically conditioning their entire species to embrace damage as a path to enhancement. Even their younglings participate in these sports. The logistics officer fainted. Nobody moved to help him up. Supreme General, Zarthak said quietly. There's one more thing. The human specimen. He's started talking about something called getting back in shape. We believe it's some sort of post-healing power-up protocol. That was the breaking point. The War Council dissolved into complete chaos. Admiral Yixnor molted his last scale and had to be carried out. 3 generals simultaneously submitted their resignations. Someone started stress-eating emergency rations. In the midst of the pandemonium, the screens continued to show Morgan Reeves, still peacefully napping, completely unaware that his afternoon snooze was causing the most powerful military force in the galaxy to question everything they thought they knew about warfare. The mess hall of the Star Crusher buzzed with terrified whispers. Private First Class Nexitool leaned across the nutrition dispensing unit, his voice barely audible. Did you hear? The human can regrow limbs. My cousin's friend's commanding officer saw it on a medical scan. That's nothing, Sergeant Biximar countered, nervously glancing over his shoulder. I heard from someone in medical that they store backup bones inside their existing bones. It's called bone marrow. The rumour spread faster than a plasma fire through the ship's corridors. By mid-cycle, the galley was a hotbed of increasingly wild theories about human regenerative capabilities. They drink this white liquid called milk that's full of bone-growing crystals, a communications officer whispered to his terrified audience. They start consuming it from infancy. They're literally growing backup skeletal structures their entire lives. A maintenance worker burst into the conversation. My sister works in intelligence processing. She says humans have these things called growth plates that just keep making their bones bigger. They don't even stop when they reach maturity. Attention all personnel, the ship's AI blared through the speakers. Please disregard all unauthorized information about human biological capabilities. This is a matter of military security. Nobody paid attention. The rumors had taken on a life of their own. In the ship's gymnasium, a group of elite warriors huddled together, sharing horror stories. I saw the medical footage, one claimed. The human was doing something called physical therapy. He was forcing his bones to heal faster through sheer willpower. I heard they replace their teeth, another added. Just pull them out and grow new ones. Twice in their lives. No, you don't understand. A third cut in, mandibles clicking rapidly. They have this thing called fingerprints. Unique bone patterns they can regenerate if their hands get damaged. It's like a backup system for their backup system. Down in engineering, things had gotten even more outlandish. Chief Engineer Vexapol was convinced humans had developed their regenerative abilities through something called parkour, deliberately jumping off buildings to strengthen their bones. And that's not even the worst part, he told his wide-eyed staff. They have these healing rituals called casts where they encase the damaged limb in a hard shell. Inside, the bones aren't just healing, they're evolving. In the medical bay observation room, 2 security guards watched Morgan Reeves doing his morning stretches. I heard, the first guard whispered, that they can transfer bone strength from one limb to another. They call it calcium redistribution. Please stop talking, his partner begged. The ship's counselor's office was overwhelmed with traumatized personnel. They have a battle cry, one soldier sobbed. What doesn't kill them makes them stronger. It's not just a saying, it's a biological fact. By evening cycle, the rumors had reached truly epic proportions. The ship's bulletin board system was shut down after being flooded with eyewitness accounts of human regenerative abilities. Humans can sense when bones are about to break and reinforce them preemptively. Their healing accelerates under pressure. They literally get stronger during battle. They have specialized bone-healing food called calcium supplements, performance enhancers for their skeletal system. Commander Zarthak stood in his quarters, reading the latest batch of resignation letters. His internal communication device buzzed constantly with new wild theories from his increasingly hysterical crew. Sir, his aide's voice crackled through the speaker. The troops are saying humans use something called insurance to predict and prepare for future injuries. They're planning their healing processes in advance. Zarthak sighed deeply, watching through his window as Morgan Reeves cheerfully waved at his terrified guards while doing leg lifts in his medical bed. Sir, the aide continued, there's also a rumor that humans occasionally break their own bones just to prove they can heal them. They call it showing off. In the medical bay, completely oblivious to the mass hysteria he was causing, Reeves turned to his guard and asked, Hey, want to hear about the time I broke both arms skateboarding and was back on my board in 2 months? The guard fainted on the spot. The day everything fell apart started normally enough. Morgan Reeves was scheduled for his first supervised walking session 6 weeks after his capture. Nobody expected it to trigger the largest military retreat in galactic history. Looking good, Mr. Reeves, the medical droid chirped encouragingly as Morgan took his first steps without crutches. Bone density readings are at 115% of original strength. Through the observation window, Commander Zarthak watched with mounting horror as the human began walking, on what had been a shattered leg just weeks ago. The small crowd of medical staff and security personnel gathering in the corridor whispered frantically among themselves. He's activating the enhanced bone structure. The prophecy was true. They really do come back stronger. Look at that smile. He's not even trying to hide his power. Morgan, completely unaware of the panic he was causing, started doing his prescribed leg exercises. "You know," he called out to his terrified audience, "I think it's actually feeling better than before I broke it." The observation room emptied so fast it created a vacuum. Alarms began blaring throughout the Star Crusher. "Alert! Alert! Human biological enhancement protocol in progress. This is not a drill." Commander Zarthak rushed to the bridge, only to find his crew already in full panic mode. The tactical officer was curled up under his console, rocking back and forth and muttering, "They just keep getting stronger over and over." "Sir," a communications officer screamed, "the human is requesting something called a treadmill for advanced regeneration training." The bridge erupted in chaos. 3 officers immediately submitted their resignations. Someone started stress-eating emergency rations. Admiral Yixnor, who had just grown back his scales, began molting again. "Get it on screen," Zarthak ordered, immediately regretting his decision. The main view screen showed Morgan, now jogging in place, explaining to the medical droid about his plans for getting back in shape. The bridge crew watched in horror as he demonstrated stretching exercises. "By the 7 moons," someone whispered, "he's already preparing for the next enhancement cycle." The scene somehow got worse when Morgan started talking about his future workout routine. "Yeah, once this heals up completely, I'm thinking of getting back into marathon training. Maybe do some rock climbing too. Got to rebuild that strength, you know." Supreme General Kazthor, who had been watching via hologram, finally broke. "Retreat!" he shrieked, his image flickering as he presumably ran from his own command center. "Full retreat! Get us out of this system!" Nobody needed to be told twice. The evacuation proceeded with unprecedented efficiency. Entire squadrons abandoned their posts. The ship's AI had to remind people to actually get in their escape pods, rather than just jumping into space in blind panic. Morgan stepped out of the medical bay just in time to see hundreds of aliens running past, screaming about human biological warfare and unstoppable regeneration capabilities. "Hey," he called out to a passing guard, "did I miss something?" The guard took one look at Morgan's newly healed leg and fainted dead away. Within hours, the entire invasion fleet had broken orbit. Emergency transmissions flooded the galactic networks. "Warning to all civilized species, humans possess biological reconstruction abilities. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Urgent. Earth classified as extreme hazard. Humans can rebuild themselves. Negotiations recommended." Back on the rapidly evacuating Star Crusher, Commander Zarthak recorded his final log entry. "We never stood a chance. Their healing abilities defy all known laws of biology. Today I watched one of them recover from what should have been a permanently disabling injury, and he talked about making himself stronger. May the gods have mercy on anyone who provokes these unkillable beings. This is Commander Zarthak, signing off, and possibly retiring to become a space farmer." As the last ships disappeared from Earth's orbit, Morgan Reeves stood at his medical bay window, watching the retreat with bewilderment. "All this over a broken leg?" he wondered aloud. "Wait until they hear about my sister. She had her appendix out and ran a triathlon 3 months later." Somewhere in deep space, several alien ships spontaneously changed course at the mere mention of human surgical capabilities. And that's how one broken leg, 6 weeks of standard medical care, and a whole lot of alien misunderstandings led to the shortest attempted invasion in Earth's history.